What's up everyone, Alex here from Computer Headquarters, and today I'm going to bring you a build guide for my Path of Exile 3.22 Toda League Crit Reap Pathfinder. And as I've mentioned in some of my previous videos, this is basically a copy of the streamer Ben's build, but on more of a budget. I'm trying to upgrade it as I go, but I'm also kind of running out of steam as it's kind of that point in the league where things start to fizzle a little bit. But that being said, the last video I put out was showing a bunch of this guy bossing, and now this video is going to be dedicated to really diving into all the little bits and pieces that make this build tick, make it work, the things I learned along the way. Like for instance, I watched Ben's video that he put out, which was about 10 minutes, and it didn't really give a ton of information. Of course, there was a POB, and that was the main thing we needed. And then Dreamcore did a video covering that, and I've been linking those two videos in all of my videos about this, so I will have those in the links, and I will have my POB linked down there, and I will have Ben's POB linked down there. So before I jump into all of the deep dive stuff into the gear and the jewels and the abilities and all that stuff, I'm just gonna give a really quick bossing montage, that very fast. My last video was like 35 minutes. I don't know how, it might be like 2 minutes of just guys just dying, right? And then boom, we'll go right into the gear. So let's check out those quick clips. Later, dude. He's doing some damage. He's almost dead. Wow. Okay. Got him. Yes. Another invitation to the fear. That's weird. And that's it? That's all you're dropping? Nothing else? Or is it? Oh, here we go. By just chatting and not paying attention while playing. Oh, got a feared invite. Yeah. All right, so you've seen some bossing clips, and let's talk about gear first. And even before that, I'm gonna just give you the full budget of this build. If you were to start from scratch, you didn't have any pieces at all, you're looking in the 500 to 750. I mean, it could even be up to a 1,000 divine. So, but I think really base level is that you probably need to have Oh, that's a big sale. You know what, guys? I'll be right back. Sorry about that. I just made a quick little sale, and for me, I know there are plenty of people out there that are doing, 100 divine mirrored type trades, and I'm not that guy. 21 divine for me is a big deal. So 21 divine off that trade is definitely worth stopping my video for a second. Anyway, speaking of divine, yeah, that was the budget. So 550 is a really good baseline. There's plenty of things you could even go cheaper on just to get up and running. But I went from, I was probably in 450, 500-ish to start with, and then tweaking it probably another 100 divine to make it a whole lot better. And the damage increase from like the 450 or whatever to the 550 I spent was probably almost 100% more damage, like double the damage that I was doing. So it goes a long way. But yeah, let's take a look at each piece of gear, and I will dive into like the intricacies of each gear. Sometimes it won't be worth talking about, and sometimes it will. Okay, jumping into gear, let's start with the most expensive part of the gear. Well, most expensive part could be Original Sin. And the nice thing about the Original Sin is that I don't need to talk about it. It's just buy whatever the cheapest Original Sin is. Unless you want to go crazy and your budget is in the mirrors, then you can just get one with like a cool double corrupt or something crazy because you're so rich. But that's not me, so I got just the cheapest one I could find. But now we're going to talk about the Scepters, which, as I mentioned, is pretty much the most expensive other part of the build. So yeah, I've got two Scepters. One of them, I've talked about this in a previous video, but I bought this one. It was already crafted up. It was ready to go. The only thing I think I had to do was change the craft on the bottom, which I switched to deals double damage. So neither one of these are even close to the tier of what Ben has. So if you want to look in the link in the description of Ben's POB for the guy he built, that is the mirror tier, like perfect best of all time Scepter for this build. He's got 3 amazing implicits. The deals double damage is your main thing you want. Okay, so that's what, like, you have to get that. But anything else you can get on top is like icing on the cake. And he had 23% to crit strike multi and 20% increased chaos damage. That's just insane. I mean, just that base would be probably a mirror. And then on top of that, he rolled it with Essence of Woe. I want to say it was he did Essences of Woe, and rolled it to get +1, and then crafted on top of it to get another +1, and then he even got another thing, which was another chance to deal double damage, and then he crafted cast speed on top of all that. His was just like godly, and of course it's mirrored. So being that I'm not on that budget in that realm of playing, this is what I crafted right here. So I think I fossiled this, I forgot which fossil it was, to 29%, and this is the base I found. It has burning damage on it also, which doesn't matter. What I forgot to do was, I don't even know how you do this, I'd have to Google it, but this guy had previously done the enchant thing that grants 1% increased elemental damage per 2% quality, and I could do that on here as well, which would probably be smart of me to do. I just haven't done it. But I mentioned this in a previous video. I spent 26 divine on Deafening Essence of Woe, and still did not hit the +1. So you're just first you're searching for +1 level of all spell skills, and then after that you're going for physical skills with a Horticraft, is that right? The Harvest Craft thing. I'm sorry if I say some of this stuff wrong. I think I'm in the ballpark. It was 2 weeks ago, and I'm, as I mentioned, not a super experienced PoE player. So anyway, I was able to do those things, but what I ended up having to do was switching to Shrieking Essence of Woe, which was about 1/3 the price of the Deafening. So it rolls a lower spell damage, but a lot less money. And if you're on a budget, then yeah, you're gonna definitely go just do Shriekings, okay? Because you could probably get this whole thing done for more like 20 to 30 instead of 50 divine. You could get super lucky, of course, the Deafening. Anyway, once you get your 2+1s, you want to do something like this: 20% chance to deal double damage while focused. I want to say that came from an Unveiled mod, but I could be wrong. It was 2 weeks ago, and then I crafted the cast speed at the end there. So this has been great. I'm still playing very well with this, and it could be better, but it's fine. So those are my two Scepters. They're not Ben's, but let's move on to other stuff. So my helmet, I want to say, is pretty much really similar to Ben's. Now, one thing that Ben has on a couple of his pieces of gear that I don't have is he's got a lot of times he has perfect chance to suppress spell damage. Please do not worry about that, especially when we're talking about like the gloves and the boots, because you can make up the spell damage on your tattoos. So don't fret about that. But you do want the things that you do want. You want to make sure you get the damage from hits taken as lightning damage. You want the cast speed on your implicits. You have to get the Grace has 30% increased mana reservation. So you want to shop for the base with just the Grace and a evasion based helmet. I want to say I just realized my quality on here is only 7%. I should up my quality. I'll do that later. Okay, so then you're rolling for those other two things in your implicits, but you're going to craft it first. And I can't remember off the top of my head what the essence was, but you're hunting basically for max life, and I think that the essence just gives you chaos resist. But max life and reserve that 10% increased mana reservation of skills is 100% required, and then you get to craft your 8% of physical damage from hits taken as fire at the end. So you're doing a bunch of stuff. You're getting life, you're getting suppression, cast speed for damage, and then you're moving a bunch of damage over to fire and lightning here. So I'm not going to talk anymore about that. Okay, Defiance of Destiny. You could, if you're like, let's just say you're on a way stricter budget, like you're trying to make this all work for like a couple hundred divine just to see if you can get it going. I think you could. And another place, this is 12 divine for a perfect 42%. Maybe if I don't know what the cheaper versions will go for, but you could definitely get away with rocking a lower one. You're just going to take more damage and be less tanky. The increased mana regeneration rate doesn't matter. Natural remedies is what Ben was using for his his enchant. What is it called? His anoint. There we go. So that looked like something good to me as well. And yeah, one thing that you might want to pay attention to though is the lightning resistance and the max life that you get on this. The life is just great to have, of course, and the lightning resistance, the more you get, the better things will be later. So it can go all the way up to 40. I didn't know that when I bought mine. Getting it all the way up to closer to 40 would make your life, it will make your life easier later. The fire and cold resist you don't need to worry about. Okay, keeping moving here. Let's talk about the ring later. Let's go to right to the lightning coil. So I'm rocking pretty much the minimum that you should be looking for. I mean, this is not going to be that expensive to get just a +1, and I happen to have had one just from I don't remember. I think I templed it or something like 2 months ago, early in the league. Anyway, Ben's got a +4, so he's got +2 duration, +2 AoE, and let me tell you, the damage, every level you get on your Anomalous Reap is a huge increase in damage. So I don't know what the percentage is, but I would say 25-30% I could get more damage if I got a +4, but they're going for 200+ divine right now, and I just don't have the currency yet. If I grinded super hard, I could get there, and maybe I will eventually, but I don't know. The league's getting late in this league, so I digress. This is the budget, the cheapest version really that you'd want to go with, which is the +1. And then let's talk about the gloves. So you're going to get a life base with evasion and energy shield, and then you're going to just roll. I probably shouldn't talk too much because you can just pause the screen, but you're gonna be moving a bunch of damage from physical to cold on this by both the craft and the implicit, and then you're also going to be adding the chance to unnerve enemies on the implicit, and then you're trying to get 14% chance to suppress spell damage. You're trying to get you're rolling int on these as well. So, and just to mention this, the int could be on your gloves or your boots, and I think Ben's were on his boots, and I just did it vice versa. But it's not, as long as you're getting int on one of them, you'll be fine. So, and then like the life roll on this is not good. It could be way better. And then the increased attack and cast speed while focused, that's huge. You have to get that basically if you want to like go in on these. I am estimating I spent somewhere between, I could be wrong, but I think it's like 10 to 20 divine on a lot of like on these gloves, and probably on my boots, and probably on my helm. So let's just keep moving here. Take a look at my belt. So I've gone through like 3 different belts, and this one is really good for what I need for all the puzzle. The belt is, in my opinion, what you need to do. Like the belt and the Abyss Jewel, those are your problem solving spots. Build your gloves, your boots, your helmet, get your rings and your lightning coil and your scepters and get all that stuff in your belt, you're going to have this problem. I'm going to talk about this later too, but you're going to have this problem where you need your int and your strength to be exactly the same for rational doctrine, and you need your dex to be lower than the two of those. Okay, so if that doesn't make sense to you, don't worry about it. Just Google rational doctrine. You can pause the video and then you'll come back and go, oh, okay, yeah, I need them to be equal. And if you still don't understand, just trust me, we'll watch a YouTube video about rational doctrine. I don't know, but that's just how it works, okay? So you're going to be solving this problem of chasing exactly these two things, and the way to do that is going to be by crafting onto one of these. I mean, in perfect world, you could do a better job and you could maybe craft something that gives you more damage or more tankiness, but this is really the way that most people are going to get there is by crafting strength or int to make it equal. So my belt, I needed a lot more int, and so this gave me int, and then I also had to have a minimum, I think, of like 26 chaos resist to cap my chaos resist, so this is doing that, but it's also giving me a bunch of life, and it's also giving me flask life recovery rate, and very important, increased flask duration. You definitely want that flask duration if you can get it. You know, it's a nice to have. Ben's belt is on a whole nother level. He has a fractured flask supplied to you have 12% increased effect, and he also has something on his belt that's like quality life. His belt is like a mirror belt. It's insane. I don't think most people are. It has alchemist genius on it. It has all this crazy stuff. It's insanely good. And on top of that, he has an abyss jewel that has a fractured 40 to maximum energy shield. And my buddy and I, when we were looking at that, we're just like, why does he need that? And we found out later that it's because in order to cast hatred, you'd have to have a little bit more energy shield. And we found a workaround, and I'll talk about that later, but we're talking about gear, and I'm totally that guy that will get sidetracked. So I need to keep moving here with the gear. We're almost done with gear. Boots. So these are really similar to Ben's boots, 20%. I want to say my buddy David told me that my boots might have even been better than his. Let me just look over here. Ben's got, he has an enchant on his boots that gives him cast speed if you've killed recently. Okay, that doesn't matter because I'm bossing. 23 chance to avoid elemental ailments. I have 20%. Okay, his elemental ailments is actually better. Or sorry, yeah, his is better. And then 30%. We both have 30%. He has a little bit more move speed. He has 14 spell suppress. Okay, maybe his are better than mine. Okay, but anyway, I guess I hit onslaught on mine, and so I just left it there. But again, this is a bossing build. Sometimes that might help you to have the onslaught there, but you know, it's really not required. You're hoping to get your onslaught really on hit, not on kill. So finally, let's move to the ring. Now, for a lot of this league, I was using a different ring. Let's see, where did I keep it? Ultimate Reaper, probably right here. Yeah, so this just had a ton of life. It had cast speed, it had global crit, and then it had this 25 strength and int, which is what I needed to solve my strength int problem at that exact point in time based on my belt, my abyss jewel. So when I changed everything around and I got an abyss jewel that had corrupted blood, I got the different belt, got this ring now that I'm wearing, which is a huge increase in damage. I didn't need the strength int craft anymore, and I was able to craft damage onto this. So you can see I've got onslaught, which is the base. Getting a base with onslaught is basically 20 divine most of the time. This actually, I bought it like this. It had the 14 cast speed, it had the crit multiplier and the life on it, and it was 22 divine, which was a great deal. So I crafted the damage, but then it gave me 44 strength, so I had to go back and play this cat and mouse game where I'm like, okay, now I've got more strength than I used to have, now I need more int, and hence, you know, getting more int on this belt, and you know, anyway, this is a great ring. This is what you're going to go for, but if you can't afford to get a 20-30 divine ring at the time, then just go for something like this where you just got a bunch of life and cast speed and crit. Okay, let's move on to the next section of this. Sorry, one thing I forgot to mention was the individual costs of everything. I mentioned it for a few items and not for others, so I expect on the very low end to spend about 20 divine on a scepter, and it could be a mirror on the high end. expect to spend about 10 to 20 divine crafting a helmet, or buying, it could be a lot more to buy it, but I'm not sure. Expect to spend about 12 divine on a perfect Defiance of Destiny. Expect to spend, I think, 5 or 6 divine, maybe they're 10 for a +1, but if you want to get a +4 or a +3, they're over 200 divine for the lightning coil. 120, last time I looked for Original Sin, they're 120, 140 divine, so this is the most expensive piece of single gear. That's just, you just have to buy it, and the build doesn't work very well without it. So I'm sure you could make it work without it, just wouldn't do as much damage. The ring I mentioned, probably 30 to 50 divine, depending on how crazy you go. It could go into the hundreds of divines if you get like a triple implicit ring like Ben had. The gloves and the boots are both, I'd say, somewhere about 10 to 20. The belt, I got really lucky and got this belt for 2 divine, but I think you'd probably expect to be more like 10 to 20. Abyss jewel, sorry, it's a jewel. I'm talking about jewels in their own category. So, yeah, that's it for the cost. And that total cost of all that stuff was 300 to 600 divine. So the gear is by far the most expensive part of the build. All right, next up we got flasks. Flasks, yeah, very important to make the build work. At the beginning of this build, I had a sapping divine life flask that gave me, took corrupting blood and bleeding off of me, because I did not have anything else that was getting rid of corrupting blood for me at the time. And that's back to like this cat and mouse game I've talked about earlier, where you're like trying to get your strength and your int just right. And in order to get my strength and int just right, I had an abyss jewel that didn't have the corrupting blood. I had other stuff that needed to fill all. I think I had some chaos resist and some other, all these little pieces of like int, actually had int and strength, and it just made all those puzzle pieces fit together. And I basically reconfigured those puzzle pieces to make my build way better. And in that process, I was able to get corrupting blood can't be inflicted on my abyss jewel, and then change my flask to the same as what Ben has, which is 50% chance to avoid being stunned during effect. Now, if you're not super familiar with crafting a life flask, the best way to do this is to just buy a divine life flask that has quality 30, and then alt spam it until you get the 60-10. Now, what is pretty likely in my experience with getting the 60-10 is that you're going to get another effect on here as well, and you probably are going to have to annul it. Now, the good news is that I think it's like maybe an average of 100 alt spams to get 60-10. So it's really not, it's not a lot of currency. It's actually more of the time and the patience to just click there, sitting there, clicking the spam. So anyway, that's your life flask. Here's your your ruby flask. So ruby and topaz are both going to be very similar, in that you're shooting for a low reduced duration, which would be 23, and you want that 25% increase effect. And so you want that on both of these flasks, and then one of them needs to have the 40% additional elemental resistances during effect, and one of them needs to have the increased cast speed during effect. Please get the 17% increased cast speed. Don't cheap out and get like 15. This is a flask. It shouldn't be crazy expensive. 17% increased cast speed is important. Go all the way in on that. Taste of Hate. Get a perfect one, no doubt about it. They're like 6 divine for a perfect one last I looked. You don't need a T4 Hillikit. You might as well quality it up because it's cheap, but you don't need a T4 Hillikit. It's going to stay active all the time. Progenesis, they're still going for 40 on the floor price is like 40 divine. I don't know what this exact one's going for. It's T4 Hillikit and it's good rolls. It's probably 60 divine if I just had to guess. This is like my first expensive thing I bought on the league. I think I bought it on like day 6. And I was using it with my previous build. So it's always nice to have a Progenesis and to get one early when they're like 5 or 10 divine. But yeah, got to get a Progenesis. It's mandatory for this build to work pretty much. And that's it for flasks. Oh man. All right. Gems. Let's talk about gems. Yeah, this is going to be fun. I pretty much just copied Ben. So I think maybe to make this easier on you guys, it might be easier to just say like copy Ben's build. This will save some time. I'm just gonna read them out loud, okay? Flame Dash, Petrified Blood, Enlightened support, Hatred, Divine Blessing support, Divergent Inspiration support, Anomalous Increased Duration support, Anomalous Phase Run, Anomalous Immortal Call, Anomalous Cast and Damage Taken support, Anonymous Zealotry, Enlightened Support again, Purity of Ice, Grace. Here's our 6th link, Awaken Spell Cascade Support, expensive. Awaken Spell Echo Support, expensive. Increase Critical Damage Support, Awaken Void Manipulation Support, Awaken Elemental Focus Support, and Anomalous Reap. And then finally we have our gloves, Enhanced Support, these are like 7 divine. Assassin's Mark, Anomalous Withering Step, Divergent Righteous Fire. Okay, so I just read them all out loud, but here are the notes here's what really matters. You could get away with going cheaper on a bunch of these really expensive gems, so your build just won't be as good. But here are the ones that really matter because I've actually experimented with this. First of all, please pay attention to the level of the gem that Ben uses because they do matter, and he did the math on some of them. They're like level 9. Like, why is he using level 9? Well, it's because, for instance, I think when I cast on, what is it? Something here is like cast on damage taken, it's level 9. And then the level of anomalous immortal call is level 14 with the plus whatever stuff that comes from it. You need it to be just like that or it won't work, okay? Just trust the math on that. Now, what I didn't do was I did not use 2 Enlightened Support level 4s like Ben did. And in fact, what I really wanted to experiment and I haven't done yet is, and you guys can try this on your own, can you get away with an Enlightened Support level 3 on your boots? You definitely can get away with it on one of your 3 links. So this one right here is a level 3, and level 3 is like 70 C or something, and the level 4 is like 10 divine or something like that. I can't remember. So if you're on a budget, for me, I got to the point where like everything was almost done and I just was running out of currency, but I was so close to being completely finished. And then I'm upgrading things a little bit here and there and fine tuning it. And this Enlightened Support was one of the things that I really just didn't want to pay for. And even if I did go to level 4, it really wouldn't have solved the problem that I was running into. And that problem was a result of Ben having like a really insane belt and Abyss Jewel. His Abyss Jewel is giving him a lot of energy shield. And the way you want this build to work is you want your mana to be basically 0. It's like pretty much all reserved. And let me show you mine. Get out of here. Sorry, these people logging in. So I'm down to 9 mana, right? My energy shield is 264. In order for me to cast Hatred, which is the spell that you're going to need to cast while you're playing, while you're bossing and stuff, I need 240 mana. So it barely squeaks in with that energy shield, because it's spending energy shield as mana, right? That's part of, what is it, Eldritch Battery, I want to say. So let me just double check. Is that right? Eldritch Battery. Spend energy shield, right? So in order to make that work, and I'll talk about this in the tree again, I suppose. I had to allocate this pointer here. Skills cost life instead of 30% of mana cost, and that way I didn't have the energy shield thing on my jewel, and it all just worked out. So that is a place where you can cheap out. My buddy did mention, he's like, why are you using Anomalous Zealotry? I said, I don't know, I just copied Ben. He's like, I don't think you really need, or level 2120. He kind of insinuated that you probably don't need the 2120. I don't know the math, I haven't checked it, but why don't you look into that because I know this is like 10 to 20 divine depending on the day. You might want to look into that. I know I want to say Awaken Spell Echo Support and Cascade Support were both like really pricey. I have a little spreadsheet I can look at on the side here. Yeah, they're both around 20 divine at the time I bought them. I don't know what that was weeks ago. I don't know what they're going for right now, but maybe you can get away with that Awakened version of that. I think that's pretty much covering everything though. I don't think there's any other tips and tricks I can really give you when it comes to the gems, so let's move on to the next section. Oh, one thing I will mention about gems that I didn't say was that when I put this build together, Anomalous Reap was going for 2120. Anomalous Reap was going for 15 divine plus, and now when I look today, it's only 3 divine. So if you're building your build now and still in 3.22, some of these things are going to be cheaper for you. All right, next we're going to talk about the tree, and I kind of accidentally started talking about it just a second ago, and some of the tips I was going to talk about were related to the gems, so I didn't really plan that out so well, but let's talk about the tree. So I want to say that Ben's POB is putting him at level 100. Yeah, I'm looking at it right now on the other screen. I am a little bit confused with a little bit of some of the things not lining up just right, but here are some things that he did that you probably won't want to do unless you're a mirror tier player like him. He ended up spending there are tattoos that cost, I think, man, is it 3 divine each? I want to per a pop, and you can re-roll a keystone into a random keystone. And he re-rolled this keystone right here, which I forgot the name of it off the top of my head because I tried re-rolling it like twice. But he re-rolled this to Eldritch Battery, which is right here. And he did that because you have to spend 1 point to get to that. And he was getting that crazy min-maxing, right? So, and also, he wanted to have this tattoo right here, which requires you to have 7 adjacent passive skills allocated, and it's a huge deal. Flask applied to you have 16% increased effect. That's chunky. Like you guys saw the flasks. These flasks are super important, and you need this. Okay, so I ended up having to spend 1 extra point here in order to still make this work. And then I also had to spend 1 extra point here in order to get the Eldritch Battery. So this ends up, there's a couple, and there's one more thing I had to spend, and I'll show you that in a second. But this just really ends up making it so that you can't spend these 3 points right here on your large cluster jewel. So that's where I took them away, I guess. So one other thing that I don't think he had allocated, I'm just going to double check, or maybe I'm not. How fast can I do this? You're not seeing what I'm doing on my other monitor, but trust me, I'm working, guys. I'm doing some math. Nope, he did not have this. So I mentioned this earlier. Skills cost life instead of 30% mana. This is how you make it work if you're not on the mirror tier budget. My buddy, who I just think is a genius at this game, David, he recommended that. He's like, oh, I know what to do to make this work, and boom, he was right, 100%. Hatred, we did not have the energy shield to make it work until we did that. So that's 1 more point there, 1 more point there, and 1 more point here. Now, what I don't understand is that's 3 points, but I'm also only level 98, so I'm 2 points. So you'd think that's 5 points off. So I'd have to go do some more research on his tree, but maybe he put the tree together like he's a level 98, even though it says he's level 100. I don't really know. I'm not sure. You guys can look at it too, but those are really the only changes to the tree itself. A lot of the other things are going to be tattoo related, and I'm going to talk about tattoos as like their own category. It's the next category, so let's roll and talk about tattoos. All right, so tattoos on the build. There's one really big thing that we're doing differently than Ben. Ben was playing hardcore. I am not playing hardcore, so he had most of these nodes here tattooed as like something about frozen. I think I still have one that I forgot to tattoo over. Let's see if it's still here. Maybe I didn't tattoo over it. Sorry, false alarm there. Or I did yeah, I must have tattooed over it. Okay, it's something about like frozen, 10% chance to freeze an enemy and they shatter or something. And my buddy explained to me that that's really good for hardcore players because shattered enemies can't explode and hurt you or something like that. And I don't play hardcore. I didn't really know what he was talking about. He's like, don't do that because it's not going to help your build. You don't need to worry about that because I can just die and it's no big deal. So instead of doing those frozen tattoos, I have a variety of other stuff. First of all, I have this one, the Ancestral Tattoo of Bloodlines, 2% increased recovery rate of life, mana, and energy shield per tribe when you have an allocated tattoo. So this is just nice because I'll show you. I'll press Hatred right now, and so you see my energy shield coming back up. It would be that much slower without this, and it's just nice to recharge that faster when you're in the middle of a boss fight, right? So let me turn on my Flask on and see if that's, yeah, that is just the rate that it goes. And you know, Hatred lasts for, what is it, 5 seconds or something, I can't remember, 16 seconds it looks like. So you're going to be charged up in time for, you can cast all your other stuff and Hatred and you'll be fine. But it's just nice to have it charge a little bit quicker. Why not? But this is one of the things you could definitely get rid of if you don't want it. But you know, the recovery rate of life is probably more important even than the energy shield. And I never counted how many of these tattoos I have. I just figured, is it going to be 4%, 6, 8, 10? I don't know, but it's going to be whatever it is, it's good. So then I also have a decent chunk of reservation efficiency of skills, and I actually tattooed these before I found out about this skills cost life 30% of, skills cost life instead of 30% of mana to make hatred work. I talked about how that's how I got hatred to work. Well, I was actually gonna keep tattooing and tattooing and tattooing to try to get to so much reservation that I'd be able to get hatred to work, when my buddy suggested this, and I could probably re-tattoo over some of these with 2% to life at this point if I really wanted to. It'd probably be worth it. I just haven't spent the time to go do all the math on that. But I have 1, 2, 3 of these reservations here, and then I want to say I probably have a few more inside the what is this, Warrior's Tale over here. Let's see if there's a couple. Non-curse aura. Maybe not. Okay, well, anyway, I have some reservation efficiency of skills up here, not a lot of them. And then I definitely have a lot of these 2% lives all over the place, because, you know, life is really important, especially when you're so tanky that you're turning a lot of life into, you're mitigating things from damages. I'm probably not explaining what I'm trying to say right now, but the more life you have, when you're mitigating damage down so low, hopefully you watched Dreamcore's video already where he explains, like, you know, let's say some guy hits you with 10,000 damage, physical hit. This is how it all breaks down, and this is how much you actually take. And it was like 400 damage. Well, the more life you have, the better when you're mitigating so much of it, right? So anyway, I'm just kind of looking for some more. Oh, one of the tattoos I missed right here, super important, Honor Tattoo of the Warlord. +1 to all strength skill gems. I mentioned this earlier, but every plus skill you can get on your Anomalous Reap is like a huge damage increase. And my buddy even said, like, I wonder why he's having you do that tattoo instead of, like, I forgot what the other one was. You can only have one of these type of tattoos, right? And he was just like, there's no way that's going to be the best in slot. And then he checked on POB how much damage you get by having +1, and it's like insane. It is super big damage. That's just different gems scale differently, right? So you want plus skills as much as possible on Reap. Going back, this is a really important spot here, right? Because this is our Warrior's Tale. So we have 4 tattoos of the Honor Hongui Makanga, which normally would give +1 to cold, max cold resistance, but it's giving +2 on each one, which for a total of +8 to max cold resistance. And when we add those +8 here with another +4 over here, I'll talk about in a second, that gives us +12 total. And with the +12 total, that gets us up to, make sure my flasks are on, 90% of everything. Wide is my fire and lightning. What's going on? So I'm just adding this clip in. You can now see that I'm at 90% fire, cold, and lightning resistances. And what ended up being the problem, thank God, I've mentioned this, my buddy David, like 1,000 times in all my videos lately, but thank God I have a buddy like David, because I was completely perplexed what happened, because I was at 90% for sure, and then all of a sudden I wasn't, and I was chasing things. And when I did some upgrades, so I upgraded my ring to this onslaught ring, which made me had to change things to make sure that my int and strength were equal again, and still higher than dex, but with everything still being high enough to wear all of my gear. And I got a new belt, and I got a new abyssal gem, jewel, I should say, sorry, abyssal jewel. And in all that process, I think I lost some fire and lightning resistance at some point. So what I did was I got a new Defiance of Destiny that had higher fire and lightning resistances. It didn't cost me a whole lot to upgrade into this, but when I upgraded into this, I forgot to make sure, first of all, I had to make sure that the catalysts were done on it. That was one thing. And then the other thing was I forgot about the anoint, because I bought it on anointed, and I had previously been using this anoint, and it's natural remedies, which gives you increased flask effect, right? And so increased flask effect means that these flasks that do things like elemental resistances are giving you more resistances. So without that, it was not getting to where I needed it to be. So I got it all sorted out now, and let's go back to the video. All right, so I was talking about the max resistances that you're getting by having +12 to cold, max cold resist, and then you're using, which jewel is it? It's one of these many jewels. that I have on my list of jewels that I was going to talk about, which are the last part of this video. So right now we're supposed to be talking about tattoos, but in any case, you get the plus 12 max cold resistance, and one of the jewels will make it so that all of your cold resistances are equal, so that you'll have 90 max resist to everything other than chaos resist. And I think that's pretty much it for tattoos. I'm just going to quickly look over these real quick. He's got a bunch of these 1% increased effect of non-cursed auras from your skills. Those are sprinkled throughout in different spots. He's got a lot of +4 all attributes, which at this point I don't need these. I could actually tattoo over these with 2 life because I'm at like 176, so I might as well pick up life instead. There is one tattoo I didn't mention earlier, which was, let's see, I think it was, right here. This is another one of these non-curse aura effect things, but it's 2% because it's inside this radius with your warrior's tail. Over on this side I have, let's see, what was it? Spell suppress. I have 3 of these. Ben did not have these. This is giving me 100% spell suppress right now. Let's see if I can show you. It says 50 here, and then spell suppression 100%. So yeah, I think he only had 98 according to Dreamcore. And then I have Tattoo of Rakiata. This is lets this guy come out and fight with you when you're fighting a unique enemy. It probably isn't worth it. He doesn't seem to do much. I think he gives you a buff though when he's out there. Maybe he makes you do more damage or something. I don't remember. I read about it a while ago. And then this tattoo, I definitely need a tattoo over with another +2 life. So that's it for tattoos. Let's talk about jewels. All right, so jewels. I'm just going to start toward the top and go through them. So we have Ancestral Vision, and I just recommend that if you're going to be grabbing these jewels, if you're not getting Corrupted Blood cannot be inflicted on you, which makes almost every jewel floor price 50 divine, just look for something that does anything that you think could help you. So like for instance on this one, 4% increased area effect. I'm like, okay, a little bit of area effect doesn't hurt me. I don't know if I need it, but apparently I think theoretically it'll make your reaps actually a little bit bigger and cover more space. But not a big deal. There's cast speed would be a lot better. One thing to also talk about the Ancestral Vision, it comes with dex on it. So depending on how everything rolled and your gear, a lot of your gear there's gonna be something on your gear that might require like 155. It's probably a gem somewhere that requires 155 dex. So you need to hit that 155. So I ended up having to look for one that had a floor of I think 7 to dex. And this is a spot where, like, as you go on through the league, like, what could I upgrade? Maybe you find like a double corrupted one that gives you a couple nice little damage buffs. Rational Doctrine, this is pretty expensive. This is 22 divine. I think floor price is 22 divine. Same thing, I just look for anything that had some rolls of things that I would like. So this has some spell damage, some area effect, and elemental damage on top of it. And it was still the same price. So I'm going to talk about the large cluster jewel last because it's the most complicated jewel. Let's keep moving down here. We have our Melding of the Flesh. Now this one does matter because this has -72 to all elemental resistances. Sorry, it varies. It has anywhere between 70 and 80. So the more you let that roll, the more cat and mouse games you have to play with your resistances, like what I just talked about with my Defiance of Destiny. What you really don't want to mess with though is it varies 6 to 4% to all negative, -4 to, I'm saying this funny, -6 to -4 to all max elemental resistances. Do not buy a -5 or a -6. Make sure you get a -4, otherwise this isn't going to work out. That's important, and it's going to make it more expensive. We've got, what else here? Sorry, I have too many things open. We have our Lethal Pride, and we're looking for Calm with 13709. This is exactly what Ben used. It took me a week to find someone selling it, and I think I ended up getting it for like 1 or 2 divine. They might be going for 5 or 10. You know, if you know anything about shopping for Lethal Prides, there's like a calculator, and there's going to be some important things like double damage. So what you really want to do is look for which other Lethal Prides will get you the same thing, where you can get, like, there's like really nice 10% max life right here. Sorry, I said that wrong, didn't I? I need to be looking at the thing on the bottom. 5% physical damage from hits taken as fire. That's what you want right here. Sorry. Gosh, I'm such a noob. And 4% max life there, and over here we got 20% increased physical damage. In any case, you probably want to look at the things he accomplished with this exact number and see if you can hit similar stuff. We have our unnatural instinct here. Same thing. This one has 4% increased damage of minion. I don't have minions, so I was just grabbing the 4% increased damage because it was the same price. These are like 4 divine, I want to say. We have Warrior's Tale. I know I've talked about this a bunch of times, but this was like 1 divine, and if it has corrupted blood cannot be inflicted, it's like 100 divine. So definitely don't get the corrupted blood can't be inflicted version, because there's no reason to spend it on that particular jewel when there's so many other jewels you could get for cheaper. And then I think the last jewel socketed, other than the large cluster jewel we'll talk about in a second, is our Watcher's Eye. So this one is definitely important, because if you don't get the spell suppress, you won't be at 100%. So I think Ben's was 14%, and I have one that's 15, and yeah, you definitely want to get this 15. And I want to say my buddy David said something about this is doubled. I could be wrong, but like something about something else with the build makes it so that whatever that spell suppresses is actually times 2 for some reason. I wish I could remember. I think it's something in the tree. It says like all spell suppression is doubled. I don't remember. Maybe I'm wrong. There's so many things going on with the build that I could be wrong about that. So, and then you're getting crit, strike, chance with hatred. Nice to have. If you can get something with zealotry on top of these 2 things, like more damage than consecrated ground with zealotry, stuff like that, definitely get that, but you're going to be spending 100 plus divine. All right, let's talk about the large cluster jewel. So Ben's large cluster jewel, I'm going to pull up on my other monitor here. He has small passive skills, also grant 7% lightning resistance. He has 3% cast speed with physical skills, and he has 7 to max life, as well as the really important part, 35% increased effect. Mine has, let's see, it just pulled up here. Okay, it has the cast speed, and it has 5% lightning resistance, and it has only 25% increased effect. So not close to as good as his, but what's more important for me is that it gets the job done. So the cast speed is really the biggest thing. You need the lightning resistance to fill what you needed for lightning resistance, and then you need the cast speed just because it gives you an insane amount of damage. So when you start looking at like one node here, 3% cast speed and 6 to lightning resistance, right? I'd have to do some, you know what? Not having the 25% increased effect definitely matters a lot for the cast speed. I didn't realize that because I think it would bump it from 3% to 4%. So that would be a nice to have. But you're getting 6% lightning resistance times 7 here, and that's 42. And at the time of when I put this build together, 42 is exactly what I needed to be at 90% lightning resistance. And as you saw earlier, I did something that broke that at some point. But this has been great. And 3 times 7 is 21. So I'm getting 21% increased cast speed, which is great. And if I had more points, I could even add a little bit more here. And if I had a little bit better jewel, I could make this like 4 times 7, which would be 28. So I could pick up a little bit more cast speed. Oh, hey, 7% cast speed. That's starting to get real picky. I think this cost me like 2 divine. This was great. The one that he has, it might cost you 10 or 20 or 100 divine. I don't even know. But that is, that should be it, guys. Wow, I just realized I forgot something. I forgot to keep looking at my notes and to give you guys the prices of things. I did that better at the beginning when I was talking about gear, but here's the breakdown. The gear is going to cost you somewhere around 300 to 600 divine. The flasks are going to cost somewhere around 50 divine. The gems are going to cost you somewhere around 100 divine. And the tattoos are going to cost about 25 divine. And assuming that you don't spam the keystone one that I'll talk about. But and then the jewels will probably somewhere in the ballpark of 75 divine. All right, thanks. There's probably some things I forgot, and if you have any questions, or there's probably going to be people that are way smarter than me and better at this game. They're like, if you only made these couple little tweaks, your build would be that much better. Please say it in the comments, because I love to hear stuff like that. And if you're, a newer player like me that hates dying, and you want to do bossing, you want to fight the Ubers, this is the build for you. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. I know this was very long. I hope the time I put into it will really help some people that are putting this together. Thank you.